Since I've used the term garbage rod in the title of the last few Finn Mosin videos, I've been sent a threat by Matt D'Orazio, author of Finn Mosin Nagant 3-line rifle to Ukko-Pekka, to stop. And now, since he is a member of Bill's Mafia, I have no reason to believe he won't follow through on this threat. During the 1920s and 30s, Finnish defense forces would continuously improve the Mosin Nagant. Unfortunately, the rivalry and difference in funding between the Finnish armies and Civil Guards rifle development would diverge into two different paths, whether it was initially replacing barrels on the M91 rifles, which I covered in my M91 24MP series video, or developing a short rifle to replace the M91, which I covered in the M27 video for the Army and M28/M2830 video for the Civil Guard. The Finnish Ministry of Defense would tire of this rivalry that prevented them from adopting a universal military rifle for both services, as they lacked total parts commonality. The rivalry would continue to ensue during the development of the M39, making it so the rifle would completely miss out on the Winter War. As with all videos in my Finn Mosin series, my almost exclusive source is Finn Mosin Nagant 3-line rifle to Ukko-Pekka by Matt D'Orazio, and I'll put a link to where you can purchase this from Wet Dog Publications in the description. Getting a book like this now is a good investment, as they have a tendency to double or triple in value once it's out of print. By 1934, the Finnish Defense Forces determined that the Army's M27 and Civil Guard's M28 rifles were unsuitable for future wartime use. As I've gone over in the previous videos, the Army's M27 had some flaws that even resulted in a stop order that wasn't fully implemented by 1934. The Army would get rid of the wing bolt connector that was initially considered an improvement, but caused many problems. This would also remove the step of making a channel in the rear of the receiver to accommodate this. There's also the problem of the weakened stocks due to channeling they and the handguards would have to go through due to the thicker barrel, and these stocks would split or shatter due to heavy usage of the new bayonet. They would fix this problem by splicing a new forestocks to the rear stock and putting small metal popsicles over the hinged nose cap to strengthen them around the muzzle. The M27 would still have the slightly modified, but still antiquated, Russian Konovlov sight. The Civil Guard were already well on the way of replacing the M28 rifle, itself slightly superior to the M27 due to being able to see and avoid some of the mistakes the Army made, with the M2830 that was further improved, with the biggest one being the new rear sight designed by Henri Mansner, completely replacing the old Konovlov sight. This rifle would clean house in the 1937 World Shooting Championships. Due to the differences in these rifles, as well as the M91 variant still floating around, there was not complete parts commonality. This, along with the Army and Civil Guard's counterproductive rivalry, led the ministry announcing a moratorium on new rifle production until both adopted a universal rifle on April 2, 1938. This would infuriate the Civil Guard with their M2830. Now, the Army did have a prototype that was closer to a cavalry carbine size, but sported a semi-pistol group stock deemed the M9135. While the Army would downplay the M2830 as merely a target rifle, they would refuse to submit the 9135 as they knew it would lose out to the 2830. Major Arvel Akarla and Captain Henri Mansner would call the Army out on this by formally submitting a complaint. The ministry acknowledged their views and allowed the production of the M2830 until the new rifle could be adopted. This would grant the Civil Guard a seat at the table in discussions of the new rifle. The Army was ready to base a new rifle off the M2830, but with a shorter barrel, minor changes to the rear sight and handguard, with a special grip stock that had a slot in the butt modeled off the Swiss K31. Testing of this rifle proved to be a failure, as the shorter barrel produced too much muzzle flash and incomplete powder burn. The Army finally abandoned the desire for the carbine length rifle and stuck with the standard length for the universal rifle. Still, this laid the framework for developing a new rifle. It would be based off the M2830 with modifications to the barrel and stock and use existing parts, and the cost per rifle must be kept under 350 Finnish marks. While they were supposed to work together, the Army would again work independently and presented their rifle, number 14, to the Ministry of Defense on February 17, 1939. The Civil Guard were again insulted they were left out of the loop. Major Kurla would encourage the Civil Guard to come up with their own prototype, except the Army would not accept the sling attachments currently on the M2830. The weak handguard of the 2830 would also need to be remedied. The Civil Guard would modify a civilian sales rifle, number 100932, to make their rifle. The front sight would be moved back by half an inch to achieve a stronger mounting of the bayonet. A new handguard would fit underneath a tab placed under the rear sight. They replaced the old Russian top loop estations with a Swiss-style stock attachment on the left side of the stock, and they designed it to be able to accept modified M91 barrels in construction if needed. In a contest between number 14, 100932, and M27 and M2830, 100932 was determined to be the best possible choice, and on April 14, 1939, it would be approved as the new M39 rifle. Still, the rivalry wasn't over, as a committee would meet to develop the blueprints that would make the following changes. A heavier stock with a semi-pistol grip, which made the rifle heavy but allowed the barrel to free float. Revised barrel band and nose cap. Fully copy the sling attachments from the Swiss K31 rifle. The barrel would be closer in profile to the M91 than either the 27 or 2830. The bore would measure 310 instead of 308 to allow for better use of captured Soviet ammo, while the rifle would also be chambered for the new D-166 bullet the Army adopted in 1936. The trigger would lose the sensitivity spring and would use two steel pins, making a two-stage trigger. Tensile strength testing of both the number 14 and 100932 would show that 100932 to be the significantly stronger. Committees would continue to drag on, and the first 10 M39 rifles from Oy Sako Ab would not be made until September of 1939. The plan is Sako making barrels and complete rifles for the Civil Guard, and VKT making barrels for the rifle assembly at AB3 for the Army would see a major wrench thrown in when the Winter War began on November 30th, 1939. Almost immediately, AB3 would be ordered to go back to making M91s and Sako M2830s. The original 10 M39s would be the only ones in existence until well after the Winter War, which ended on March 1940. The Army would initially order 20,000 rifles from Sako in April 1940. The first 6,200 would be mated with stocks lacking the semi-pistol grip that were already produced. The Army would order 60,000 total from Sako among three orders to the Continuation War, with the final 6,500 being delivered after the war. The Army would also order 30,000 AB3 assembled M39s made with VKT produced barrels during World War II. The Civil Guard would order a total of 20,500 rifles from Sako among these orders, but fewer than 300 of the final batch of 10,000 would be delivered due to the Army's order taking precedence, as the Civil Guard was to act more of a home guard during the Continuation War. And in reality, the rifles they did receive should have went to the front lines, with older rifles serving in the home guard role. The Army would receive all the Civil Guard's rifles when they were dissolved due to the agreement with the Soviet Union to dissolve all fascist organizations after the Continuation War. Due to delays thanks to the inter-service rivalry, only 13% of the rifles used during the Continuation Wars would be M39s.
Alright, this is the M39 Mosin. This is supposed to be the creme de la creme of all Mosins. This does have the D on it. It's made by VKT. So this should fire regular ammo, but I have had problems firing this in the past. This is the first time I'm trying brass case in it though, so hopefully I have a little better luck than I have in the past with the steel case Tula. So, let's see how she does. Nice. It likes that brass case ammo a lot better than the steel case ammo.
After the war, the Finnish Defense Forces would standardize on the M39 and would warehouse all other Mosin models. VKT would become Velmet Oy, and they would put together small batches from warehouse parts and old M91s over the years, and AB1 would make a small batch from 1967 to 1970. The M39 would be officially replaced by the RK62, with production of those beginning in 1965, and active service of the M39 would end in 1979. They would remain in reserve, with some sold to civilians. They'd be exported to the United States by Century, International Ordnance, and Tennessee Guns in the 1990s. My rifle is one of the AV3 assembled rifles made with a VKT barrel. It has a 1941 date on it, as well as a D for the D166 ammo. The big thing that will make you spot an M39 Mosin versus other Finn Mosins in general is the semi-pistol grip stock with the Swiss K31 type sling attachment in the left side. I bought this rifle in 2015 from Classic Firearms, which I actually unboxed on this channel in my 5th video. I've been frustrated over the years as I couldn't really get it to shoot 7.62x54 ammo I had, most of which was steel case. I finally got some good PPU brass case ammo, and it finally lived up to the hype with that. Maybe next time I'm up, I'll pop open one of my spam cans of surplus ammo to see if it really lives up to the Ukko-Pekka moniker. And what, pray tell, is Ukko-Pekka? In all these Finn Mosin videos, I brought up my source, Matt DeRazio's Finnish Mosin Nagant 3-line rifle to Ukko-Pekka, with Ukko-Pekka referring to the M39. This moniker was borrowed from Pierre Anvard Svinhufvud, the first head of state of independent Finland. While there is no direct equivalent, I would consider Mannerheim as Finland's George Washington, while Svinhufvud would be either Jefferson, Adams, or Madison. Originally a lawyer and rural judge, Svinhufvud would become a hardened constitutionalist as the Tsar imposed Russification upon Finland. He would eventually become prime minister of their new legal body, only to have the habit of getting them dissolved by the Russians due to opening speeches sticking to legality, defending Finland's legal rights, in a form of passive resistance. When the Tsar imposed martial law at the beginning of the Great War, Svinhufvud would find himself sent to Tomsk in Siberia. He would maintain secret ties to Germany while there. After the February Revolution happened, he made his way back to Helsinki and was treated as a hero. He'd be appointed procurator of the Senate, where he would not dissent from the manifesto that kept the body in session after the provisional government ordered it dissolved, and presented Finland's declaration of independence from Russia when the Bolsheviks toppled the provisional government. As head of parliament, he was considered the head of state. He would bring in Mannerheim to build the police force and army while securing repatriation of the Jager Battalion to Germany. As the Reds forced Finland's own civil war, Svinhufvud spent the next few months trying to escape Red-held Helsinki. He would help secure German help in ending the war in favor of his government. He would be elected the country's supreme wielder of power. Svinhufvud would push a Germanic monarchy, but this would collapse and the country head towards republicanism with the German loss of the Great War. He'd be forced to resign, but as a condition, Mannerheim would be his successor. He became a private citizen and would join the Civil Guard, rising from private to sergeant major while becoming an avid marksman. The pictures of Svinhufvud in his uniform and rifle would have affectionately garnered him the nickname Old Man Pete or Ukko-Pekka, in a way the mascot of independent Finland. He would again become president in the 1930s, where he'd worked to snuff out communism, quelled an uprising from the right, and pushed to prepare for possible war. He'd be ousted by the Social Democrats prior to the Winter War, and as a private citizen would travel to Germany and Italy to try to secure help from Hitler and Mussolini, neither of whom would see him. He would pass away in 1944. As we way back from the historical aside, Svinhufvud was regarded highly as Ukko-Pekka at the time of the adoption of the M39 rifle, so the rifle receiving the nickname was high praise. If you want to take a ride that was Finnish Mosin Nagant development up to Ukko-Pekka, click on the playlist over here. Otherwise, please join the GOA and get a $5 discount with the link below. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.